on them. So meaning vows, we can speak them out, mention them out, but if we don't really ready to work on them, then they remain to be just pronunciations. I think that's a very key word, that vows are not just pronunciations, but they must be accompanied by action. Maybe Liz, on your end, do you think we put in less work when it comes to the vows? And then what are the works we need to put in? Because basing on the building blocks, so what am I building? What am I going to put on? Now, basing on your understanding and probably your journey in marriage, what have been your building blocks that you've been able to say, I employed this and this worked out for me?
Thank you so much for having me. And just to add a little bit to the covenant bit, to the vows, it's good to remind ourselves that vows are a covenant that you take. So they are not something you take so lightly. And going by contract terms, when you sign a contract for a business and you go against the contract, law can be taken against you. Now, a covenant is even stronger and binding than even a contract. So when you get into a covenant, it's serious business that needs to constantly be taken care of. Now, when you talk about the building blocks, I said I'm in that industry of the building. So we put up houses. So I understand a little bit about building and foundation. And one of the key things is that you have to get it right with the foundation, because if you miss it out with the foundation, you will end up having some hiccups, let me call them hiccups, and challenges that will take a lot of time to iron out, or you may take longer to find your landing in the space called marriage, because you'll have to be sorting out a few things because you got it wrong at the foundation stage. So the first thing is the foundation, you must get it right. And more so for us who are of the household of faith, you must get it right with the foundation. The foundation has to be what we call a 3 strands affair. I think another day, about 2 weeks ago, I was doing the same somewhere else about the 3 strands affair, where it has to be you, your spouse, and God, but God has to be at the center of it. Because when we are in the business where we are seeing things happening so fine, let me put it quote unquote, when people get married, it's so rosy, it is so nice, and God takes a back seat in that relationship. But when the bumps come, the seasons change, and you have the stormy seasons coming in, then that's the time people are remembering, yeah, and we had a God somewhere. It's amazing that there's a generation immediately after the weddings, you never see them even in church. And you wonder how they simply, they go too comfortable. You've been praying and fasting for this guy or this lady, and she came and he came, and now God takes a back seat. You have to get the foundation straight and continue cultivating and working on that. The relationship has to be 3, not 2, when it is rosy and even when it is not so rosy. Now, the other thing that you have to add to the pillars or to the building blocks is learn to communicate. Communication is key. And I'm not saying only you communicate when you're feeling good. I'm not saying you communicate only when everything is okay. It's learning to communicate even when you're not comfortable, when you're not feeling at your best, when you're feeling aggrieved by your partner, when you're feeling like nimekanyagwa kiasi. Those moments you should be able to communicate, but communicate well. Now, it's good to know that communication is 2-way. I cannot only be the recipient of communication from my husband. Neither can I be the only one who is communicating. It has to be 2-way. I communicate my pains, my feelings of good. And that's, let me highlight that. It's also good to communicate the appreciations, because that is also important. No man, no woman does not like to be appreciated. So communication has to be fueled and taken care of. And then I'm rushing through this. We have also to hit a compromise, because it cannot be my way or the highway all the time. You've got to come to the place where you compromise, and probably your decision takes a backseat a little bit. And then you allow the other person's idea to take the lead, or the 2 of you do more of a collaborated kind of proposal, or gelling together your 2 ideas so that you hit a compromise, because it's a journey you're walking, the 2 of you. It's not a temporary contract. It's a lifetime thing that you're doing together. And whatever decisions you're coming with, they're for the good of the 2 of you. And then the other thing that you have to add to it as a building block is you have to have a lot of forgiveness. Men, forgiveness is you have to forgive, and after you're done forgiving, you forgive seven times in marriage until you I think sometimes you forget the 77 times 7 times that you have to forgive, because then you have to keep forgiving for you to be able to live with this person and enjoy the company of each other and not persevere, because marriage is, I say marriage is not to be persevered. Marriage is a space where you're supposed to enjoy and not endure. So for you not to endure, you have to be forgiving, the two of you. And lastly, because of time, you have to understand each other. And I combine with this one and say, spend quality time together. Those are the building blocks I can mention for now.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Wow, umeniambia story, forgive until you forget that you forgave it, and then you forgive again, eh? So you forgive until you forget that you did this, and then you continue doing it again. I think that is very powerful. Maybe what I can just ask from you before I go to Mr. Nyundo. In terms of now, the areas that probably have mentioned for us, did you ever face a challenge in any of the building block? Maybe in forgiveness, communication. Now, based on where you've been tested, and how did you deal with that part?
Communication, for me, communication. I think that's the one that hits the top of my mind. When we got married, I was working in a bank, and things were a little bit rough and tough. And I remember at one point I would come home and I'm just moody, I'm not myself. And my husband would ask me, "Are you okay?" And the woman in me would say, "I'm fine." And it ends there. But in actual sense, I'm not fine. I'm actually, inside me, I was begging that he could probe me further so that I can say, I'm not okay. But me, I simply say, I'm fine. And he moves on. The next time I come again, he asks me, "You still don't look okay." I say, "Nah, I'm fine." "But you're so quiet." "No, I'm okay." I got to the breaking point. So I just busted out one day and said, "I don't think you care." And he asked me, "Why?" "Because you can tell I'm not okay, and you're just moving on with life." He told me, "Excuse me, my dear girl, I am not a mind reader. The minute you tell me you're okay, I believe you're telling me the truth. Please tell me exactly how you're feeling so that I can be able to work with you." So I think that was for me like a wake-up call, because then when he said it's not a mind reader, I was like, okay, it sounded a little harsh, but it was the truth, because I was communicating something different and expecting a different outcome from someone who was exactly hearing me what I was saying and responding in accordance to what I was saying.
So kuna sauti umse shikanishi aje. Yeah, where can this guy really see what I'm seeing and feel what I'm feeling?
Nibembeleze kidogo kidogo tu alafu niweze kuongea.
Wow. This gentleman, what wanapitianga. Thanks for sharing that. I think one of the ways that I think I might come back to is in terms of now the expectation part of it, because that was breakdown in communication, and there was another issue that was like, na expect as ajue niko hivi. And maybe going back to Mr. Nyundo, what has been your greatest building block, and how have you been able to maybe uphold it?
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Douglas. I also want to thank Liz. That was a very powerful, evaluation. Forgiving your 7 times 7, na amesema specifically men. So men tuko na kazi hapo.
By the way, if we like your story, man, have you been having a challenge in forgiving?
No, I think maybe what she meant is that men, we are normally hardliners by nature, and we want things in the way that we want them. We are very possessive in our nature. We are very territorial. So at times, when a mistake kakiingia, at times we may take it personal and see it's my authority that is being challenged. It's my position that is being challenged. So I think it's just in those dimensions. And also the other thing that she said about communication, one thing that I picked is that we need to understand that the husband and the wife, the man and the woman, have very different ways of interpreting issues. So the mode of communication for a man is very different from the mode of communication from a woman. So as a man, if you're treating I speak to the men here, if you're treating your wife to be the way you would treat yourself, you're more than likely to find yourself getting into a lot of issues. You need to first of all understand how the makeup of women, how their minds work, how their emotions work, how they think, because like Liz was saying, she was hoping that Mr. would pick that there's something, would probe a bit, would go on deeper. But for us men, at times, ukiambia uko sawa, unasema sawa basi, you move on quickly to the next thing. We are always goal oriented, or we are moving to something else. So if you say okay, sawa, we are moving to something else. So maybe just touching on that for that. You said about the building blocks. One of the building blocks that I would highly, or have highly used in my marriage situation. Number one is, we need, first of all, even before we speak of this being a union, as an individual, you need to first of all self-evaluate yourself before marriage. Self-evaluation is very key. Where have I come from? What have I been through? How have I been raised? What have I been exposed to? How has it affected me? What have I made, or what have I done to make what was negative better? How have I enhanced the positive? So that, as the Bible says, that a man shall leave his parents, the woman will cleave unto him, and they shall become, the two, the Bible is very specific, the two shall become one. So one of the key things is compatibility. And with this compatibility, I always say that in marriage, 1 + 1 = 1. So one in this connoting wholeness. So as an individual, you must be whole. You must have worked on yourself. You must have taken time, to improve yourself, to enhance yourself in one way or another, so that as you're coming to join somebody else, hautakuwa mtu wa mashida ama mtu wa kuleta vikwazo, na you'll be a person who can bring value to the marriage. And again, also what I always say, a person who is whole will always attract another person who is whole. If you've worked on yourself, you can identify things that you don't want, things that are not right. Trust me, if you're set right, you will also attract somebody that is right. Number two is compatibility. When we speak about compatibility, it's a very fundamental block in marriage, and even in my marriage, it has been very fundamental, because you're going through a journey. It is not a short journey, by the way. Like I believe it's Liz who was saying that this is a contract that is binding. In fact, a covenant with God is more binding. It has more clauses to it. It has more, more. What would you call it? It has more repercussions to it. So this is a lifelong journey. It is a long journey. So you want to go on this journey with somebody who you're compatible with, somebody who you can think on the same wavelength, somebody who you share, a certain friendship, somebody who you can see eye to eye, somebody who you can enjoy talking to, you can enjoy discourse, somebody who, I put it down, somebody who shares the same vision. Vision is very key. Vision is a key thing in marriage. If a marriage does not have a vision, trust me, it will go nowhere, or it will be full of, pain, bitterness, and all that. So your vision must be key. Personalities must be compatible. You need to understand personalities. When I'm doing guidance and counseling, I normally take people through, a talk or a session on personalities. It's good to understand your personality. You and your spouse maybe have different personalities, but you need to understand your personality and the personality of your spouse, so that they can be easiness of what Liz was talking about, communication. Because different personalities have different ways of communication. To some, there's a personality who would not want to be bothered, na hawana ubaya, hawataki tu kusumbuliwa, so you need to know how to navigate through that. Kuna another personality that inapenda kuongea. So if you're there and you're not understanding, unaona tu mtu ni wa makelele, anapenda, but maybe in that makelele, there is an expression, there is a message that is being passed, there is something that is being done to the soul and to the heart. Another building block in terms of compatibility is there is attraction. There must be attraction, because this journey, there must be that freshness. You need to have that desire for that person, to be with that person, to share ideas, to talk and all that. And then another building block is courtship. Douglas, I hope you're still with me.
Yes, I'm writing them down.
Okay. I hope it was a bit quiet. I was a bit worried.
Bado tuko na 1 hour, so msiko na mbio. We until 8:30.
So to summarize haraka haraka. Okay,
Chini
sawa sawa.
summary. Yeah.
So another building block is that courtship should be done in depth. I repeat, courtship should be done in depth. When I spotted my wife, I talked to her, we engaged in a conversation. I talked to my God, like Liz was saying, the three chords. God is the main strand, that as we are intertwined, I talked to God and I said, this is a lady that I want to, take and be my wife. One of the things that we did is that we had a serious courtship. Now, courtship has two dimensions. There's a dimension of talking, communication, getting to know one another. And also there's a dimension of mentorship. One of the places where I see courtship going wrong is that two people court a young lady and a young man, but there is no mentorship. There is nobody who is giving them oversight. There's nobody who's, evaluating what is happening. So one of the things that I did is we were surrendered to a man of God that we trusted and who we honor, and he was able to evaluate or to supervise our courtship. And our courtship was not just, I remember we were talking with Douglas sometime, it's not just the milkshakes, it's just not the burgers, it's just not all this, the fancy joints in town, it's not just the parks, the arboretums and all that, but it's a place of engaging on serious conversation. This is a place where you get to know that person, you get to understand how their mind works, how their spirituality, if you're a person of the faith, how to what extent is this person exposed spiritually? What are their desires? What are they looking to? Is this person looking to start a family? Is this person looking to go in a certain direction? And that becomes as such a strong building block, because at that point you're able to tell if we are compatible. You're able to tell, can we establish a family with this person? Can we establish things in the marriage setup? And the last thing that I would say is a building block is discipline. Discipline is so key. Any sign of indiscipline is normally a problem, but you need to have such great discipline to adhere to the principles that God has set as a standard of marriage, to adhere to your the vows that we are talking about, that we've said that you will see them through. One of the vows usually talks in sickness and in health, in good times and in bad times and all that. You need to keep to that, because the way we are, or the worldly system, brings all these conditions around our way. Like Jesus said, he wasn't worried about what comes from without. He was worried about the within, what is within, because whatever comes from without, it cannot affect the within if the within is set right. So discipline is one of the key things to setting that right. I think I will stop for this moment, Brother Douglas.
Hey, that is powerful. I think we need to really hear this more. I like all of us maybe to comment. You can share what you're learning from this. Like I said, we are doing this. It may look like only 13 people here, but we're saving a generation because we don't need to have a house full, but you need to have us full for it. So ni sisi tuko tumejana your desire grow than filling the place with people who don't have the desire. One of the things that is happening right now, Mr. Nyundo, as you mentioned, is we have a lot of young marriages that are not really going the right way. I remember what Liz said, and this is very, very painful, and it's really one thing. I don't know how we can do about this, whereby young people get into marriage and during courtship, dating, they're really committed to church. They really surrender themselves to church. They're praying and fasting. They never miss church. They're devoted to the church, but at the end of that marriage, you see, as a wedding, if you don't see them in church, we don't fast again. So I don't think is a place that we are really taking things casual, because we take dating and courtship serious, and then we come into marriage, then tunalegea kwa marriage. Where is the place of consistency in terms of building the blocks? And feeling like now we need, I think we can relax a bit. Are we giving the devil a chance? Maybe I can hear it from Liz.
I think your question is takes me back to a story in the Bible of a prophet who had been sent to deliver a certain message in the Old Testament. And he was told, once you're done, don't use the same route back home, use a different route. And I think he got too much of good success, and he saw what the Lord had done through him. And the Bible says that he rested. Yes, he obeyed. He never went through the same route. He obeyed, but I think he rested. And in my thinking, when he was resting, he was really reflecting on, wow, this was good. This was awesome. I loved the things that were unfolding. And in that moment, that's where he was caught. I believe if he never took the break that he took, he would not have been caught up by that other old prophet who came to lie to him. What am I simply saying? When all is rosy, when all is looking good, I think that's the place we are more likely to go into slumber. Not only in the space of marriage, but also in our own spiritual lives. You are more likely to go into slumber when everything is rosy. Even look at our nation, Kenya. Just before an election, the year before an election, we pray. We seriously pray and fast. And what happens almost immediately after that is we get into a celebration mode and we slide back and tend to relax. Then when something seems to erupt again, we go like, oh, Jesus, remember Kenya. So I think we have to be very intentional to cultivate that personal relationship with God at a personal level as Elizabeth. And even between me and my husband, we have to also be very intentional. The same way, you know, when you have to read the Bible, there are times you wake up and you feel like, hey, I wish today I can take a shortcut. Then you remind yourself and say, hata kama niskusoma verse moja, wacha nisome, then try to understand what I am doing, because there's an inner man that needs to be constantly fed. And unless he's constantly fed and taken care of, he's going to suffocate and to starve. And once he starves, he's dead. So we may be having very many dead cops walking around in matters of the spiritual wellness. And we need to go back to that place of being very intentional. It's not about my pastor firing me. It is me who has to keep the fire burning.
Well, thank you so much. It is us to keep the fire burning, because I think what we do is we really do marriage casually. I normally say, like I was saying, people that marriage in the place where you get into and then you are given the certificate before the class. It might be true, but I normally say, if you take it that way, then we don't invest before marriage. Like you're saying, you are involved in real estate. You don't start building a house before clearing the ground. You just come with cement, ballast, and all those stones and start heaping them before you make the ground clear. Yeah. And you see, if you take it like, and we mentioned this to most of the young people, that you know what, when you get to marriage, and we normally say this every time we talk about marriages, weddings, that you're going to learn more. Yes, you're going to learn more, but the end of it is we must establish the right foundations. I normally say that we must be very cautious that even before you get into any relationship, that we have cleared the ground. Some of the grounds, like you're saying, is we clear even our negative articles concerning marriages, or even clear the altars that have been there. Yeah, break a few things in our lives, or establish the foundation of prayer, like you're saying, or establish the foundation of purity. Let's say like purity. You can't tell someone that you get married, then you start lying about purity. No, the foundation must be set before even you start getting married. So what I think we need to understand is, as we're building these blocks, some of the blocks are not even found in marriage. They're supposed to be started even before marriage. So siendo kutafuta mawe kwa marriage, kuna mawe zile paka ninazo kwa marriage. So let me ask maybe from the Nyundo. You talk about maybe the courtship should be done well. And thank you, Ngeno. You've done a good summary for us. God bless you. That's a good summary for us on the chat. So Nyundo said that courtship should be done in depth and serious. And there must be mentorship and insight. Basing on, like I was saying, mostly is the marriages that we're able to see maybe having challenges and young people going through a lot of challenges. Do you think we don't just want to have insight, or people who are working with us even before marriage, and then we throw them away? Because one thing that happens is, I think maybe you can elaborate on this, is where is the place of an insight or someone who is watching over us as we are relating before marriage, and where is this place of the best couple? Are these two things missing, losing their meaning? Are we just having these people ceremoniously? Because like Liz said, even prayers, we drop them after we get married. And sometimes even you drop the best couples and you drop these accountable friends immediately after the wedding. Is there a miss, or why is the problem? Nyundo.
Okay, thank you, Douglas. Gotten you well and clear. I would agree with you and say there's a miss, even beginning from the previous conversation that you've had. We don't worship God because of what we are going to get. God is not, a consumer store where we get in and we take what we need and we are out. Anytime we need something else, we come back, we get it, and then we're out. The foundation, the focus has to be, especially for us with the faith, a relationship with God. I'm not seeking God because I want a husband or a wife. I'm not seeking God because I want a job or I want to do well. I'm not seeking God because I want to be healed. I'm not seeking God for the secondary, rewards. But the first reward is having a relationship with God. So, when it comes to that relationship with God, whether I have a husband or not, whether I have a wife or not, that relationship stays constant. I'm not moved. That is my center point. That is where, from in basketball, in football, when a game is going on and a goal is scored, where does it start? It has to go back to the middle. God is that middle. You don't leave the pitch and go play in another pitch or go and play in the parking, but you remain in that sports pitch and you play there. That is the center. So God is the center where we operate from. And yes, I would say this: the mentors and we have not taken it seriously with the mentors and the best couple. These are not just people that you get to solemnize your ceremony or to stand with you, but you need to be very careful about who you pick, because mentorship is forever. Right now, where I am, 16 years, 15 years into marriage, I still have a mentor whom I go to speak to about my marriage issues. And a disclaimer I want to put for everybody here, especially those who are not married: marriage has issues, and that is part of the beauty of marriage. A marriage, because it is a growing thing, it is it's going through metamorphosis. It's growing, it's adapting to times and seasons and all that. So it will go through the challenges, but the beauty of marriage, in those challenges, is where you find joy in victory. Anytime in marriage you're able to overcome a certain challenge, you're able to overcome a certain stumbling block, you're able to overcome something that stood in your way, it brings joy, it brings growth. There's growth in knowing that we overcame that stage that we are at, and now we are wiser, we are stronger, we are better. So, like I was saying, I have a mentor where I go through. My best couple, they were not just people I chose, but there were people who, when we are having good times and bad times, we can share with them. We are always accountable to them. You see, the aspect of having mentors and having a best couple that is not just two people placed together, but one of the best things to do with the best couple is to have a couple itself. Two people who are married. Don't just get somebody but get a couple that is married, a couple that is exposed in more years in marriage. They have been in that place for some time, and you can talk to them, you can share with them. You can ask this place, like Douglas has put it strongly. It's been said that this is the only place where you're given a certificate of a passing or a certificate for this institution, and then you're thrown into the institution. And now this is where the mentors and the couples help. You ask them, by the way, when I was having let me put this as I chase a rabbit on the side. The time that me and my wife had our first daughter, Deborah, I have a beautiful daughter who's she's going to turn 12. Such a blessing in our life. But the time we were having our first time, it was one of the most tumultuous times of our lives, because we were entering into a new season. My wife was carrying a child, and for women here, I know you know that when you're carrying a child, it changes so much. The biological and psychological changes are so much, and we went through a tough time. And maybe I was not able to understand. But these are the times where a best couple helps you, and you talk to them and you ask them, by the way, how does it go when you're having the first child? What are some of the things that I should expect? What are some of the things that you should do? And I remember a best couple would tell me this: iyo lenga, iyo wachana nayo, iyo usiaddress, iyo nyamaza, iyo ongea, hapo cheka kidogo. Hapo. You understand? There are certain pointers that I was given that would make it easier. One of the statistics that has been done, many marriages break at the place of getting the first child. That is where a lot of the infidelity happens. That is where a lot of the wife becomes bitter and hateful towards the husband. Husbands, that's the time many of them go out. So to overcome that, you need somebody who you can talk to. So I would say this, my brother Douglas, that mentorship and the best couple, or that place of that ministry, let's call it the ministry of best couples, is so key, and it should be lifelong. These are not people that you just get on the day after the ceremony, hapo tumeachana, but it should be lifelong, and that will bring you to a place. Paul speaks, and I think he's speaking to one of the churches in one of the epistles, and he says, by now you ought to be teachers. The only way to be a teacher is to sit under other teachers. So as you're sitting under this best couple, it is preparing you that one day also you will be able to mentor a couple that is coming behind you. And this never stops. It is lifelong. Thank you, sir.
Wow, thank you so much. I really love the way you're putting it, because we ceremoniously have this in our lives. And like what I'm learning from your conversation, Mr. Nyundo, is one of the greatest, one of the building blocks, like I think Liz also mentioned, is having people around us. We can never run this journey alone in terms of marriage. And sometimes we really bring people around us during the wedding preparation. So we have everyone, the master of ceremony around us. We have them in terms of the chairperson, transport manager, event manager, and all people around us. Once they help us establish or probably have that, the wedding we wanted, these people disappears after the cake. Now you remain there with your wife or with your husband. And Liz said, now in between you and your husband, then there must be God. And then now Mr. Nyundo brings in the other person. You know what? At the end of it is you need accountability. Because what I think the current generation fears is accountability. And probably I will ask Liz if you've ever encountered a place where someone, I remember when I started doing, let me just say, when I started doing these programs, I started in town. I think, kitambo sana, Nyundo has really worked with us. We used to do them in town. And I started doing them in town at the Boneas, and then I went to 7th August Memorial Park, na conference room. So some of the young people who knew I was doing this, and we were maybe almost the same age group, we will try even to maybe ask them, hey, excuse me, church sana. Then you maybe inbox them and just try to know how they're doing, and probably seeing, I feel they're doing, they're not doing, our end is in Jamzori. So just try, how are you doing? How have you been? Hey, we need to have a cup of tea together. And this guy will be like, hey, because initially we used to call it build to last. You want to build to last me. And for them, it's like, if you're going to have a meeting with them, you're going to to get them off what they really think it is right. So they will run away from anyone who is going to let me say correct them, or I'm just trying to do the one someone who will tell them the truth so that they can be able to walk in the right. And I think I lost many of those young guys just because they felt like anytime I'm going to meet with them or have a cup of tea with them, I'll take them off what they think is it. And eventually they married wrong. Some of them married and then broke off. Some of them had babies before marriage. And I was able to see this, but there was that fear or running away from us. Maybe Liz, have you encountered a place whereby you want really to stand in and help someone or a young person, and these people just run away because they feel like Liz at a Kinyua, so let me run away with the same thing I'm doing? Yes.
I think those instances are many. I am 18 years in marriage, so kuna mahali unafikanga unasema you're almost acquiring a master's degree in what you have seen and what you've heard. In my mother tongue, we say what you have seen and what you've heard over a long period of time, you qualify to get a master's degree. I mean, life has taught you a few things. That's basically what it means. So yes, there are those moments where you've tried to send warning signals, work with someone, like warn them, and you're really not reprimanding them, but telling them, I think this direction you're taking is not right. And then all of a sudden they build a block, they build a wall, you cannot access them anymore. And since it's not a forced relationship, it was a friendship that was there, you simply take a back seat. And I'm shy of saying you watch, because you're left with very few options. You can't whip this person, you can't force them to hear you out. So you simply take a back seat and feel the pain, but there's very little that you can do. Eventually, things turn out to be not very rosy, but then in our life, choices have consequences.
And some consequences are very painful. And like you say, I think that's why we need to look at, and maybe going back to maybe even for the married people, because now we see people running away from a place of accountability and feeling like this is going to be a watchdog over me, so I don't need people to watch over me. And this happens a lot. And we need to look at it and ask ourselves, for how long are we going to stand alone and beat our chest that you're already okay in what you're doing? And maybe just to ask Liz again, in terms of probably the building blocks that you're mentioning, do you think we can recover once in marriage if we didn't build well? Is there a place of rebuilding, or it is too late?
What we can say is there are areas you can work on. There are areas that you may just have to tell the Lord to forgive you. And I'll give you a good example. Now, if a lady decided to get married, elope with this guy on 31st of December, 2022, and okay, let's give it 2021. Okay, we assume now she has a baby, and then she realizes what I did was wrong because I just walked away from my father and mother's house. I never really sought their blessings. What you can do is go back to them now and seek their blessings. We cannot now tell you undo the relationship or you walk away from it. Now you have to trust God to help you now work on those other few things, because he's able to mend that which we cannot now do, we cannot undo. Because we can't tell you now, walk away, walk out of this. You're already there, and probably you're the one who has gotten saved. The other guy is still not saved, because we have those scenarios where one spouse walks into salvation before the other, and they realize our foundation was not all right. You can still walk with people that can hold your hand, and even in the churches that we have, the Pentecostal churches, you can still solemnize your union. But it would not obviously be like the way it is done in this other whitening, we call it in my vernacular, the whitening of your union. The Pentecostals will also give you the chance to, quote unquote, solemnize your union, whiten it, for lack of a better word, as we call it in my mother tongue, and probably have a few things running. Never beat yourself so hard if you started off on that foundation. It's simply like asking, someone asked me, I am now a second wife to somebody, and I am saved. I already have 3 children. You can't tell this person to walk away. There are things that are practically like a scar. I gave birth through CS, and however much I have healed over time, the scar constantly reminds me that I gave birth through CS. That cannot be undone. However, healing can happen. I think that's how I can summarize where you can be able to go back. So the things that you can be able to work on them. Those that may need God to just intervene and show you and give you wisdom to walk around them, please pray for wisdom, because God is able to show you how to navigate.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. In terms of if maybe I didn't have the right building blocks and now I'm in marriage, there's still hope.
Mm.
And all is not lost. What I can just say is we need to understand probably what are we building, because maybe we might be building different things. And that's why Mr. Nyundo said that there must be a common vision. That doesn't mean that you must all be planning to become pastors or planning to become maybe doctors, but do you have a common vision of the marriage? Do you have a common vision of the marriage? And maybe go back to Nyundo. Do you think maybe we start losing it from the beginning and then we fight back by saying, I think we are not meant for one another? Is there people who are meant for one another?
Personally, I don't believe so. I believe I'm not a believer of that. I've heard that term used a lot. You'll meet your soulmate. You'll meet the person who's made for you. Personally, I don't. And now I'm not making it, a commandment or law. But personally, I don't believe that. I believe things are worked to. Things are, you work towards something. We here, when it comes to marriage, one of the greatest mistakes that I've seen, once a marriage or you get into a marriage based on emotions, based on feelings and all that, you will get it wrong, because emotions are highest on the wedding day, and probably a few months, a couple of years, 1 or 2 years afterwards. But after that, the marriage hits a stage of reality. And if a marriage was based on feelings and emotions, then this is a rocky foundation. This is a place that cannot be, it cannot be trusted, So I'll say that I don't think there's that thing of somebody built for you, you work towards it. How? By starting it the right way. If you're a believer, starting it in God, making sure that as an individual, you have the right foundation, you have the right ingredients that are needed to be good to yourself, and also to be somebody who will add value to somebody else, to be somebody who will be able to attract somebody of value. Value in these terms does not mean treasures, does not mean finances and all that, but somebody of value is somebody who will carry the same values that you have, will stand for the same principles, somebody who, has a good head on his shoulders, somebody who will push for the right things. So I would say things in marriage, things are worked too. And when we enter marriage with on the wrong foot, that is where you have cases like you say, where mtu anasema nyewe hapa nilifanya makosa, hapa it was not meant, it was not what I thought it would be. All that, like the basis of the conversation today, all comes down to preparation. All comes to that place before. That is why courtship is a mini series of marriage. Courtship is a mini series of marriage without the rewards and all that are there in marriage. But this is a mini series. So the questions have to be very well targeted. You have to understand this person, where they come from, the family that he comes from. What are some of the things that they face? What are some of the strengths that they have? What vision does this person have? You have to understand, the background of all things. You have to go in depth and understand all that to avoid the possibility of getting into marriage and being at a place where you regret it. So I would say, Bona Douglas, all these things should be done before. And for those who have gone ahead in marriage and have come to this realization, like Paul says, if you're getting to marriage and one of you is born again, it's not grounds for that marriage to end. You can work at it. How? By showing genuine love, by having conversations where it's not accusatory, but by enlightening. One of the things in marriage that we need to learn, or an art that we need to learn, it's not a place that is supposed to be combative, but it's a place of ideas, hinting. There has to be an art to marriage. There has to be a way of the communication in marriage. It has to be artistic, because for some couples, when you point something out, it seems like it's accusatory. When you speak in a certain way, it seems like you're attacking me. So it has to be placed in a certain way. So Paul says you can pray for that person, you can pray for your spouse, you can show them an example of how this life is effective. So I would say, to avoid all that, it is possible to mend, but it will cost a lot. It will entail a lot. It will be a journey that will take a lot. It can happen, it can be rectified, but the best place to get it's at the place of beginning. The word of the Lord says that the way something starts is the way that it is established. So if it's started in the right foundation, then this marriage will flourish and will grow in how as how the Lord wants it. Back to you, Brother Douglas.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nyundo. You really brought up very well. And in terms of understanding the communication and the artistic part of it, of communication, not just speaking out, or not just maybe like Lisa telling us, just expressing your feelings and expecting the other person to read them and make a paragraph and send it out of it. But is it in a way that the other person will understand what I'm trying to communicate? Or am I communicating out of my feelings or my frustrations? Because sometimes we pop up with information, or our feelings go beyond our truth or our self authenticity. So it becomes even hard for us to understand what is happening. Maybe back to you before we close this. We have heard a few things concerning the building blocks. What will you say will be your 3 topmost building blocks that have helped you remain or still get married to one and only Kathy Nyundo? Ni kama zingekuwa ungekuwa umehepa, because I think Liz said, alisema ni forgive until you forget that you forgive, then you forgive again. What are those 3 things that have held your marriage? Because I know what happens is watu sema kama in the first 5 years ujaibeba bag unatoka, ama wife ajaibeba bag anatoka, and then you guys are still lying to one another. What has held your marriage for 15 years?
Okay, thank you, Douglas. For me, this is my personal ingredients that have held a marriage. Number 1 has been a relationship with God. I can't tell you how many times me and my wife have had situations where I've had to literally step out and have a session with God and have Him communicate with me and minister to my soul. Because at times there are issues where you feel, this is beyond me. So having that relationship with God, and one of the things that when you have that relationship, God is a breaker of hearts. God works in the dimension of divinity and in the supernatural. There's a conversation I could have with God. I think there's a mic that has gone on.
Sorry, it's okay.
Okay, there's a certain thing that can seem like so hard, but when you have a conversation with God, God has a way of touching that thing. And at times I've seen also in my marriage where there was such an issue, such a stumbling block or something that was standing in the way. But after prayer, after